Salvation by Yolanda Felder Ministries. For this time in this season, you should find comfort in knowing that the Lord has spoken a word over your life, and it is going out to perform what it was set out to do, and it's not delayed. Hello, and welcome to the Yolanda Felder Show. I am so grateful and honored that you decided to join me here again for another episode. And as usual, you will not be disappointed. Now, today we're going to do something a little different. I have a guest with me. I'm so excited. And listen, if I'm bringing somebody to you, that means that they are awesome. They're on fire. And this is a person that you need to know. You need to hear what they have to say, hear what they have to do. Like each month, I like to spotlight someone who is doing phenomenal things in the community, who is changing our minds, transforming our lives. And that when I get a chance to meet that, I want that for you, right? That's what we do here. So today I have Miss Phoenixx Love. And let me just share a little information with you about her. She is a holistic therapist. She's a wellness consultant, educator, and author. She has over 20 years of combined business and clinical experience in consumer research, behavioral science, clinical psychology, child welfare, social service, and the healing arts. Ms. Phoenixx is currently an adjunct professor at Hunter College, formerly a mental health administrator, employee assistant program specialist, and trainer for New York State Office of Mental Health. Now that's powerful, right? That means that this woman loves the mind. And what do? We love the mind here because we know that the mind, if your mind is not wrapped right, then you cannot operate in excellence, right? So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Miss Phoenixx Love. Hi, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Yolanda. Thank you.
Yes, so we're going to get right into this. Miss Phoenixx Love, welcome to the Yolanda Felder Show.
Thank you.
I am so glad that you finally got here. We was trying to figure out a day to bring you here, but
I know.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that today is that day.
I am so blessed to be
here. Yes.
To
so
be here with you.
I want you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself. I mean, I did give an intro, but I mean, you did come from mental health, but then what happened and how did you get here and all
the
of
journey.
Your wonderful things. That's right, guys. You are in for a treat.
Okay, so again, thank you, Yolanda, for having me, and I'm so happy to be here with your audience and with your guests. Like Yolanda shared, I am a holistic therapist and wellness consultant. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I have a business called Healer's Haven, which is a holistic health and wellness consulting business that helps both individuals that are struggling and suffering in silence, relationally, emotionally, spiritually, just anything where they're having different disturbances, and just to help them to heal, restore their lives so that they can live on purpose. I also work with businesses and helping them to really look at their employee relations as well as their productivity and their overall functioning to help to see exactly, where I can help them to rebuild and restore their businesses. So I can just talk a little bit about my journey as far as becoming a clinician. I always had a heart for helping people. And I think this journey started way back when I was in college. And I was pretty much in charge of bringing different programming to the school. So at the same time, I wanted to really look at different ways that I can provide services to the community, the surrounding community. I actually went to school at LIU Southampton. And in that particular area, what a lot of people didn't know, there was some kind of like vulnerable populations and underprivileged. So I think my heart for helping really started there. I started a program between the college that I was at with the local community services that was in that particular community. And we started like an after school program. So I believe the journey, if you want to say, kind of the fire ignited at that time. And then I ended up going into a different field, actually working in marketing for a little while. So I took a little detour. But even when I was working in marketing, I was always volunteering. So I became a community activist, giving back to my old community in Hempstead, where I grew up and went to school, and also running for different offices. I actually ran for the school board trustee back in early 2000. And then I was doing different volunteer opportunities even through my church at the time. So my husband and I were actually youth leaders through a program called High Achievers Academic Program.
Where's that located?
HAP. It was located. It's no longer around, but it was located actually with it was a partnership between our church in Queens and the Hempstead School District.
Oh, okay.
So it actually functioned out of the Hempstead Middle School. So we were there every Friday night. I was a youth mentor working with the girls, running groups there, and my husband was actually working with the kids and doing basketball. They actually had basketball, I guess what you call it, like basketball meets, where they would play basketball every Friday. So anyway, it was an opportunity to bring together the youth, and it really was a neutral ground for the kids because there was a lot of gang activity at the time. And I was very intricately involved with also working with the girls on helping them with self-esteem and different things like that, and just helping them to see themselves in a positive light. So again, even though I was working in a different field at the time, I was always helping in social services type of activities.
Wow.
So I guess the fire just kept going and kept being ignited. And I ended up actually going back to school and getting my master's and becoming a licensed clinician. And I started working with the New York State Office of Mental Health.
Okay.
And I was pretty much with them for about 10 years as a primary therapist and working with children, severely, persistently mentally ill children, what I call the last stop on the bus. These were children that could not function in school any longer. They had severe mental health conditions. They had emotional disturbances. They were being kicked out of school. They were running away from home. Just you can think of all of the different challenges that children can have where they were severely emotionally dysregulated, and it required for them to be hospitalized.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I was a primary therapist for these children, for adolescents.
So you working with that population, that age group, you also had to deal with the family, right?
So yes, absolutely. So
and that's a lot.
One of the things, even in the work that I do in my private practice now with Healers Haven, is that any time that I'm working with a child, an adolescent, the family component is extremely vital and integral to their course of treatment and to their healing. So I say, even though that child is the primary client, there's family therapy involved, and it has to be those interactions with the parents as well.
Yeah.
So I always let the parents know right up front that no, this is not a situation where you can just drop the kid off and then you go grocery shopping and so on and so forth. And that's not for every session. However, there will be times that I will need to meet with you individually. I may need to meet with the two of you. I may need to bring in the siblings and so forth. So yes, even at the children's hospital, I definitely had to meet with the parents. And sometimes the parents were like my other client. And that was the reality, because a lot of times, or most of the time, the children, especially when they're at that level of care, which is the highest level of care, the parents usually have some type of mental health condition or mental health disorder as well, or substance abuse issue, or some kind of situation, family dynamic that's going on that is actually impeding on the function of even the child. So yes, it ends up being a treatment that involves the parent as well.
So you fast forward, what happened? What triggered that you said to yourself, you know what, I need to reach out a greater way, that I'm needed more, like that call, because something happens to all of us that says, you know what? Yes, exactly. It's like, it's time to move past this. The system, I call it a Babylonian system. I call it a Pharaonic system, because that's what it is. And you can only go but so far in it. And when you're there, of course, you're helping people and this is what you want to do. But when you see that there's so many restrictions, something in you says, you know what? I need to reach these people. They're getting lost through the system because, you know, you hear it all the time. You can't help everybody, you know, but you know that in your heart, it's like, you know what? I can reach this person. I can do it a little better. And that's that calling from God.
Absolutely.
You know, that's God. He puts that gnawing in you and you're like, you know what? I got to do it this way. Yeah, it's done this way, but I know that I could really touch someone a little more if I move out in.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up an extremely valid point, and I think along my journey, yes, I did have that aha moment, probably a couple of times. If you talk to my husband, he probably would echo that I had that aha moment because I was working when you're working with adolescents, especially adolescents that have different mental health disorder, they have emotional disturbances, they're constantly in some kind of crisis. It does take a toll on you. You know, my heart is, you know, I have a big heart, I have a bleeding heart. This is why I do the work I do. But I'm also a very staunch advocate for mental health, for children in foster care. A lot of the children that we were working with, they were in foster care, the child welfare system. A lot of them were coming from these, you know, homes where there was just a lot of domestic violence, drugs in the home. So, of course, that was definitely something that resonated with me. And I knew I had to do more. I really was wanted to get involved with policy change. So as a primary therapist, you have but so much you can do. You're
absolutely.
At a certain level. So I knew I had to kind of move up the ladder.
Yes.
And, you know, if anybody knows, if you're working for, especially if you're working for a government agency like I did, there's always going to be bureaucracy and red tape and challenges and institutional racism and, you know, you name it. And yes, all of that was a factor.
Yeah.
So, but I was able to make some moves and make some changes. I ended up being sort of the front door of the same agency when they changed over from being an inpatient hospital. They closed it down. And that's when Cuomo really kind of closed up a lot of the facilities that he felt that was not, I guess, profitable in some way. So that was one of them. So anyway, when we turned over to community services, I was the front door. I was the face. I was managing the admissions department and really helping to funnel in clients for the community services.
Wow.
So I was going out doing presentations about systems of care. And these were all proprietary presentations that I put together for them. I helped train a lot of the staff, the whole agency, in change management. So there was a number of things that I was bringing in from my corporate background. And I thank God that I had it because I was able to bring it and use it to really help build up the community services. But it also started building up something in me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I made some other moves, but I was able, the more that I was able to move and navigate through the system of working for the state, making more connections, moving up, becoming a director, over at New York State Office of Children and Family Services. I was actually the director of treatment for their residential center for adjudicated female girls, adolescent girls.
Wow.
So,
nice.
So with that, you know, with each movement, with each step, there was always that, okay, here's a greater need for advocating for this particular population. So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, so which population did you enjoy working with the most? The girls, the lady, the young girls, or the boys, or it was mixed?
I think it was mixed. I think it was something rewarding from working with each population that I work with. The experience of working with the girls at the juvenile justice facility, I believe because of my role and the autonomy I have, I was able to do the greatest good and bring in a lot of programming, putting a lot of systems and structure that they did not have in place. I was responsible for training the whole facility. We're talking about over 100 and something employees, staff at all different levels. And basically the new model that they had that was going to facilitate change within the whole agency. So it was, a huge feat, but it was also a very, very important one because it was helping them to shift from being a correctional model over to something that was more treatment and trauma focused.
Okay.
So this was me bringing in this sort of like, and they had a little joke about it called Hug a Thug. But it was not Hug a Thug. It was actually bringing together different evidence-based, empirical-based models, treatment models, and not throwing out the correctional pieces and the crisis management, because we needed that, of course, with the population was working with, but finding a way to merge them, which wasn't easy. There was a lot of resistance, but I really, really enjoyed that because it was so, so important to have that for this particular population.
So now you see that the mind, you knew that how to handle them. You understood their age. You understood that the behavior, the way they responded to things, and the reason why they acted out was because of the home life.
Yes. And
then who they're surrounded by, the information that's knowledge, and it's just it's like people do what they do based on the information that's handed to them.
Absolutely.
And to me it's hard, it's awful that you're crucified because of lack of knowledge. So say, for example, a child may be a little off, and the parent, as parents, that's the last thing you're looking, and you're like, no, that's not my child. You have issues because you take it to yourself. You're a parent and you're like, what did I do wrong? Even if you didn't do anything wrong, in your mind, you're still saying, well, my child is not perfect because, my child has these things going on. And then you seek help. Okay, so now you finally come around, the daycare or the school says, you know what, the child needs to be diagnosed, and now the child is really acting up. And now, depending on the parent, if it's a parent who is maybe working, who doesn't really have that much time to cater to the needs of the child,
right,
then you get this behavior, right? And now,
which is labeled as deviant,
or
and something, ADHD, right?
And then if you don't have the funding to help you privately,
right,
now you're tossed into the system. And the system, to me, the system tries to help as best as it can, for what it does. But it really doesn't, it's a Band-Aid.
Right, exactly.
It's not curing.
Right.
So then that's where people like you say, you know what, I love these people. I love what I do. I know, because it doesn't come from outside, it comes from inside. So inside of you is saying, you know what, I have the right thing that they need. I have exactly what they need to be healed, to get to be that person, to get their head right, to just have them focus, to be able to complete something.
Right.
Right?
And the work I was doing, which it speaks to exactly to what you were saying, I had a lot of liberty, really at both places, when I was at OMH as well as OCFS, but really when I was working with the girls, because we're talking about girls that are coming in, they have very high IQs. Mm-hmm. These are girls that were victims, and I'm going to say victims, of the child trafficking situation that's been going on, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And it was pretty much that type of environment is a breeding ground for the child trafficking, because they actually recruit each other in these types of facilities. Wow. So you're talking about them in prostitution, and they're on drugs, some of them. So we have all of these different factors besides the mental health, the mental health disorders, and coming from home lives where some of the parents were actually the ones putting them out there and saying, hey, here's my daughter for some drugs. So you have all of these different things, foster care and so forth. So I always say, as a clinician, you have to be, especially working with youth, you have to be extremely creative, because you're not always going to be able to reach them with just saying, okay, well, I know, CBT and all these different evidence-based type of practices. Sometimes you have to think outside the box.
Absolutely, because this stuff is theory.
Exactly.
You got to have
theory, but then you have to reach that person.
Exactly.
So I would bring in a lot of holistic health methods. Mm-hmm. And I would work with them. I would pray with them. I would do meditation with them. In fact, we had a spirituality group that I ran every Saturday.
Awesome.
And they looked forward to it.
Of
there
course.
was times I had these girls sitting around, and I would have them read scriptures or affirmations.
Awesome.
Okay? Because we would use different books, whatever resources. And they'll lay there. There was one little girl, she would sit there and just cry because they were so broken. And like you said, you're trying to put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound that is so big. And they would sit and they would come and talk to me and they'd be like, you know, people don't understand. I'm in here. One young lady said to me, she was 15 years old. She was out prostituting and, you know, getting in trouble, fighting all the time. The mother, they had a terrible relationship. Wow. And she would sit there and say, I'm in here. I'm locked up. But the guy that actually raped me, he's out walking around doing whatever. How is that justice?
Right.
So when you hear stuff like that, when you hear stories like that, yes, it pulls on the heartstring. I said, I have to do something greater and bigger.
Yep.
So that, I think, was the biggest aha moment, working with those young ladies. And that's what really put a fire in me to become not just a mental health advocate, but also an advocate for youth and adolescents and even women, you know, that have adult women who have become adults, but they never did the healing from what happened in their childhood.
Well, you know what I always say, if you don't take care of something at its stage, it goes with you to the next stage of your life. So if your needs weren't met, if you didn't grow up in this stage, whatever happened, like, you know, say you're 10 and now you're 15, whatever you don't mature in, you don't handle for a 10-year-old, when you're 15, those characteristics are with you at 15. This is why we see adults and we say, oh God, he acts like a child. Because when he was a child, whatever that was that he needed to grow up past, he needed to, you know, master, he didn't. So he takes it. You're still going to get older. And that's just going to come with you. And if your needs weren't met, it's going to show up. It's still going to show up.
And my work that I do with adults, I deal exactly with what you said, but I'm going to take it a step further. Because we look at the unmet needs. What are the unmet needs, not only as an adult, but what were those unmet childhood needs? And I always tell people, I say, if you want to know something about a person or get an inkling of what's going on, look at their adult relationships, and I'll tell you something about their unmet needs as a child.
Wow. That's good.
Yeah. And it's real because, her name is escaping me, but there's a TED Talk. I know her name is Dr. Nadine. Her last name is escaping me. But anyway, she did a TED Talk about childhood trauma. And it was based off of ACEs, which I've used for years in my practice, adverse childhood experiences. And how that assessment, it speaks volumes about if you have 4 more of these ACEs, then, you know, most likely you are still experiencing or re-experiencing that trauma.
You know what?
You have not been healed.
I just saw that on Oprah,
Yes.
60 Minutes.
Okay.
They spoke about in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, wherever Oprah is from.
Chicago.
No, when she was a kid, growing up.
Oh, her hometown.
Yeah, I think it's Milwaukee, very poor.
Okay.
And it's poor there. Wherever that was, Wisconsin, I think it's Milwaukee. Anyway, and they were talking about childhood trauma. And instead of arresting the children and kicking them out of school, they set up a program where they asked them, well, who hurt you? And I watched this last Sunday, and I looked and I was like, yes, because that's been my thing. It's like, stop asking what's wrong with you and start looking at people and saying, well, who hurt you? Because if you're angry, your needs aren't being met.
Right.
You know, you're like, I need someone to hear me. I need someone to be there for me. I mean, I remember one time, I don't know where this came from, but one summer, as you know, I used to have a daycare.
Right.
So one summer, I had a little girl, young, she was about 14, and she was reading the book Precious. And Push, but it was Push, exactly.
Right.
And she was really and I said, well, what's that book? I had never heard of it. And she started telling me. I looked at her. And one thing that I do know is that we don't read anything or listen to anything we're not interested in. Like, I'm not interested in NASA. So I'm not going to sit there and watch the NASA channel.
Right.
Okay? That we're not doing. But you know what I'm saying? You're not going to read a book that doesn't speak to you, that you're not interested in. So I looked at her for a week. And she was reading this book, and she was really into it. So I said, tell me about the book. So she started telling me. And I looked at her, and I said, she was like 14. I said, so has anybody ever touched you? And she looked at me just like this. And she was like, wow, Miss Yolanda, how you know? I said, because that book is deep. That book is too deep for me. So I know somebody had to touch you, that you're relating hard to this book. And so she was like, yeah. And then she started telling me the story. And it was a relative. Yep. Her parents died from AIDS and drug overdose. And she's like 6 and her cousin is 12. And finally she tells the aunt, and the aunt with the Bible. Yeah. Make him put his hand on it, and there she go with that foolishness. But anyway. Oh, no. And he, what demon is gonna, he has no respect for the Bible, so of course he could put his hand on there and say whatever, right?
And that's how they dealt with it.
And that's how they dealt with it. Oh no, you're lying. So of course she starts acting out. Because no one's there to protect her. And then on top of that, I have another little girl, same summer, they working side by side, and she was gang raped in Connecticut. And because she was here illegally, she didn't report it. I said, that has nothing to do with it, honey.
And unfortunately, what you're explaining, it happens all the time.
Yeah. And I felt I hugged her and was like, you know what? And I found myself really coaching those two, because you know what? She told her mom. The mom didn't believe her, but that's because somebody touched her mom. And back in Trinidad, the uncle touched the mom and the grandmother didn't believe it. Right. You know what I'm saying? So if the grandma didn't protect mom a lot of times is not going to protect her baby because no one protected her. Right. Somewhere, somehow, somebody has to break the cycle. And healing has to take place.
And this is a big part of, and this happens in every culture, but especially when we talk about people of color, these generational curses, these intergenerational curses, these legacy burdens.
Yes.
And then it's a cycle.
Yes.
And then a lot of times we're told, don't say anything.
Right.
Or it's taboo, or just keep it in the family.
Or
what
it's your
happens
fault.
in the house stays in the house, or you blame the child.
Yeah.
And
what did you do?
Right.
What did you have on?
So what it does is it builds up a lot of shame and attenuation and guilt. And then, like you said, it shows up usually in youth and in children as acting out.
Yeah.
Or trauma also shows up as it may disguise itself and look like ADHD, which we know especially a lot of our boys are misdiagnosed with ADHD every day.
Wow.
Trauma can look like lack of focus, because these are some of the symptoms. Lack of focus, lack of concentration, right? Hypervigilance.
Right. Wow.
So because, things like that you can definitely develop into post-traumatic stress disorder. Yeah. A lot of people only associate PTSD with veterans now, because that's where the funding and the attention has come from the, the U.S. government and everything. But a lot of children, especially those that are dealing with racial racial discrimination and different things that are happening, police brutality, gender identity issues, this can also be extremely traumatic. Socioeconomic issues that are happening in the communities. So we have all of these different factors, layers and layers of factors that not only our children are walking around with, but like we said, those generations. The parents are usually suffering in silence as well. Yeah. So yes, these are the reasons that I said, one, to be an advocate and to get out and start educating the community, because I've been doing workshops and training, both for the government as well as from going into like CBOs, community-based organizations that I work for, and then we'll go out as well and just do presentations. It's very, very important that there's an understanding, and we have these workshops and we have these forums. I'm starting to see a lot more, especially on Long Island, where there are different panel discussions like the school to prison pipeline. That's a big topic that's across Long Island, New York, and everybody's having these forums. But we have to continue the conversation.
You know what? I was watching something on TV. Those documentaries. I watch a lot of documentaries because
Me too.
those things, you are more educated from those things than actually, regular TV. But I was watching where the prison that they hire prisoners. This has been going on since the 1800s, where you're in prison and I done lost my train of thought. Where you're in prison, like you go to jail, and these private sectors are leasing you out.
Yes.
So, and what popped into my mind when you were talking about the pipeline is that it's like, instead of educating you, and educating you not with regular curriculum that we live in, that kind of education. No, I'm talking about really speaking right to your needs, who you are, the calling on your life. Instead of doing that and headed you into the guiding you in the right direction, it's like they need cheap labor. So if I can get you, before it was third grade, now they're taking the children daycare, taking them out of the homes, 3 years old, and putting them in the school. And to me, that's too young to go into a big school.
Absolutely.
And then in New York City, they have pre-K to 12th grade in this one building.
Like a lot of the charter schools.
And to me, but see, the charter schools are smaller.
But still, that's a lot.
It's a lot of kids.
Right.
And so how is it that everybody's needs are being met? Of course, you're setting up a very toxic environment. So what's going to happen to these children? You're watching them. Of course you're watching them because you already set the tone. If you put a bunch of people, you could put a bunch of educated, bougie people in a tight box and watch how they behave. They will get out of hand and out of control and everything too, because you're caging them in. And you have all different kinds of age groups. You have all kinds of things going on. And everybody's needs aren't being met. What's going to happen? And then you say you're watching this? No, what you're doing is you're setting it up. So people like you who want to help, by the time you get them, it's like, they've been through the system, honey. Put that list over there. Put them over there in that corner. Right. Everybody's redeemable.
Everybody's redeemable.
Everybody's redeemable. I believe that as long as you get up every day,
it's never too late.
You are redeemable, because that really gets on my last nerve, because
you brought up an extremely important point that I really want to speak about, because when we talk about whether it's the school to prison pipeline, or it's even the populations that I've worked with, with the child trafficking and the mental health, the kids with the severe mental health and the foster care system, this is all systemic. And this has been going on for a long time. But I'm going to bring in a whole other layer which lends itself to why I do what I do as far as the holistic piece of it. Not just looking at the mental health component, but we are whole beings.
Yes.
So we have to look at every single aspect.
Yes.
Every single, not just mental health, but our physical health, our sexual health,
yes,
our spiritual health, yes, every aspect. Because at the end of the day, there is a mission, I want to say, and it had been that way. We all know this, that with certain neighborhoods, marginalized communities, right? The most vulnerable communities, people of color, minority communities, however you want to label it, that there has always been a mission to destroy, to bring down, to dumb down. So this is where you see a lot of research out there about even the vaccinations, the foods that we eat, the water, as we saw with Flint, Michigan, the toxicities that are out. So it's systemic. And then even like I mentioned earlier about a lot of, especially the young black males that are being misdiagnosed with ADHD, the girls as well. Because again, if you can get them put into special ed, and I'm not saying IEPs and being in a special education class is necessary for some of the students. It's very necessary. However, it should not be 75% of the kids, because just because they're acting out. And like we said, we didn't take the time to find out why are they acting out.
Right.
What is the real problem?
Right.
What's really going on
Right.
here? Let me look at the whole family
Right.
system. Let me look at all of the systems, all of the factors, and doing the due diligence to see, okay, and not just labeling, and doing thorough assessment and hiring someone like me and hiring, professionals that have worked with this population, have worked with these kids and have an understanding. But we have to understand that this is a mission. There is, it is a systemic mission that it starts with our foods that we eat, GMOs, the chemicals that are in there. So this is what I'm saying. You have to look at everything from a holistic approach. We have to be educated, and we have to make sure that we're doing our own research and our own information and tapping into resources that understand, okay, here's the right foods to eat. Here's different methods, holistic methods that I can use. I don't have to go and necessarily have prescription medication for whatever my symptoms are.
Yep.
Right? And even when we talk about women's health, okay, that a lot of times we're going and we're getting these surgeries and hysterectomies and all these different things we're doing with our reproductive system, that is preventable. But if we don't have the information and we don't have the knowledge,
Yep.
then what happens? And we have to understand there's even a mission with that.
Yeah.
So there's so much of, I want to say, a re-education that's necessary when it comes to Black and brown communities. Because I think there's a lot of misinformation that haven't went out because, again, we have to look at the source. So when we talk about holistic health and holistic therapy, it's looking at every aspect of you as a whole being and looking at the different methods, bringing in still the clinical and the clinical psychology and the mental health, but I'm always going to do a thorough, comprehensive assessment because, again, I know that there's always a core to every issue and a challenge, even if the symptoms are showing up as mental health symptoms.
So I want to ask you a question. What are your fears? What are you afraid of? What are you scared of? Because we all have fears, don't we? We all have something that's blocking us, that's holding us back. You can either live your dreams or live your fears. And I think the majority of people actually are not living their dreams, but are living their fears.
Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary.
And the majority of the fears that we have are not life or death fears. They're not those kind of fears. But through our imagination, we blow them out of proportion and we give them more power than they actually have or deserve, and we permit them to govern our lives. We permit them to determine how far we can stretch out on our dreams and discovering our stuff. See, now, if you go through life being afraid, people can sense that. They can pick up that fear.
Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart.
What would your life be like as you look toward the future if you decided, I'm not going to allow my fears to stop me? What would your life be like? When you begin to look at your life, you can decide to use fear as a blocker, or you can decide to use it as building blocks.
So, now with that being said, what what lovely things do you have here?
So it brings us over here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so, now when I needed water for this.
Oh, we
For
need
the
water.
thing. So I have over here, I have a crystal.
Where's the water?
Yeah, I just need like a cup of water. I just realized if we don't do it, it's okay. So this is a crystal. I'm actually going to stand up because this is easier to. So this is a crystal quartz singing bowl. And it's a frosted one, and it's actually made of the actual crystal quartz, which has its own healing properties. It's almost like the main healing crystal that's used, and it's very good just for energy and if you're having any type of challenges in your health overall. So it's like a general healing crystal. So this bowl is actually attuned to your G note. So it actually has its own note, and they have them in all different notes, just like if, you're playing a piano, guitar, and has different notes. It's the same thing for a crystal quartz bowl. It's also attuned, the G note is attuned to the throat chakra. So the throat chakra, we have these 7 chakras in our bodies, and they're also called aritus. And these are like energy meridians that if out of alignment, we can be out of alignment emotionally, spiritually, physically, everything. So the throat chakra right here is whenever that's out of alignment, usually you have a problem with owning your voice, speaking up for yourself, having confidence in your abilities to speak, having confidence in standing in your truth. So this particular bowl can help with that. And so I'm going to do a little demonstration. And, you can hit it like that, and it can be just like, and you let the tone die down. So the thing with bowls, whether it's the crystal singing bowl or like my Himalayan singing bowl here, it's all about the tones and the vibrations actually hitting those brain waves. So when it's hitting those brain waves, it's just like listening to music. If you think about if you're listening to a song and you hear that song and it kind of brings you back to a certain time in your life or, gets you going, it's the same thing with bowls. Okay? It appeals to not only your brain, but it also gets into your soul, your consciousness, your state of consciousness. So this is where the healing properties get in there, because just like they tell you when a woman is pregnant, you put like some Mozart on or some classical music, baby Mozart and all of that, so that the baby, while it's in the womb, can hear it. Why? Because there's healing properties in the sounds and in the music. And there's like what's very popular right now is binaural beats, right? Why? Because it speaks to the brain waves and gets it going. So it's no different with this. It's the same principle with singing bowls. So let's see. So it's a build up, and it could actually go higher and louder than that, and then it's a slowly decrease.
Wow.
So if I'm sitting with a client, I would sit with them, like we'll sit on the floor, lotus position, and I'll have the bowl between us. And so that not only can the sounds resonate to that brain wave and the cellular level, but also they can feel it. They can feel the energy of the bowl as well.
I just did. So that's why
right,
I'm
you felt it like, yes. So I'll do it one more time. So I always couple my sound healing with breathing and meditation techniques. So it all comes together. So the whole point, and especially when I use like this bowl, These are Himalayan bowls, or some people call them Tibetan bowls, but they're truly Himalayan bowls. That's the source. And as you see, it's made out of metal. So this actually goes on the body. So a very different function than the quartz. The quartz doesn't go on the body. Like I said, I would sit with them and this would be on its stand that it's on. But these, I have a number of these, and it goes on different parts of the body. And the combination of the vibration as well as the tones, it puts the client in like what we call an entrainment, like a state of relaxation. And it's like a lull. The beautiful thing about doing any type of sound healing, because I'm a certified vibrational sound healing practitioner, is that it also helps the practitioner. So while I'm doing the treatment with a client, I'm also getting the treatment. So it's simultaneous.
Wow.
And it's very beautiful.
That is.
So, like, actually, hold your hand out. I'm going to sit it on your hand. So just hold it like that. So if it's on, I usually put it on different parts of the body. So you hear the tone, but you also will feel the vibration. You have to put your fingers down a little bit. Let me see. Like this. And then you touch the side so you can feel it. There you go. Then we put it at the bottom. At the bottom, yeah.
Like this.
Take one hand off. Just put like your finger on it. Just a finger. There you go. So imagine, like if you think about water.
Now this time it was longer.
Yes, it lasts for a long time. So if you think about water, like with water, you would see the ripples in water. And what are we? 80% water.
Water, yeah.
So since we're 80% water, and you can imagine the water ripples in here. The same thing that's going on in our body. So it reaches down to the cellular level. So it's relaxing, but it's also healing.
Nice.
So this is a practice that my clients absolutely love.
Yeah, because I'm relaxed. I'm like,
You only had a little sneak peek of it.
Yeah.
So what I normally do, especially when I'm working with the Himalaya bowls, is that I also incorporate, I'm a certified Ra Seiki Reiki practitioner as well. Ra Seiki Reiki is a form of energy healing where we're manipulating energy throughout the body for physical, mental, emotional healing as well. Also working with the attitudes or the chakras in the body. But we also bring in other aspects like using instruments like drums and rattle.
Nice.
So for example, if you are someone that's suffering from depression and I see that there's a blockage in, say, your heart chakra, so I would pull in maybe some drums.
How do you know that they have a blockage?
There's an assessment that we do with, because our hands, there's healing energy in our hands. Just like you and I, you said, sit closer, right? And then there's a number of energy just in the contact that we have with each other. And this is all from our ancestors. Ra Seiki is it's ancient healing energy, holistic healing energy method that is from our ancestors. So we're able to pull from that using prayer, using meditation, using gemstones and crystals. So I'm able to go over my client with my hands and feel out based on the energy, the areas where there's blockage.
That's a heightened
And
level
based
of
off of that, then I look to do the work. So I can use gemstones for the healing. I incorporate, because I'm certified in both, I incorporate using my singing bowls as well as just using other things like gemstones, aromatherapy, in setting the tone in the environment as well. A key component of that is also the work that I do on myself. So I have to make sure my diet is good, that I'm praying, that I'm fasting, that I'm meditating, okay? Because my energy and frequency has to be at a certain level.
Right.
In order for me to be effective with my clients.
That's true. That's true. You know what? That's right. Because it's a connection.
Yes.
And when you meet them, it has to be a spiritual connection, because if not, if you're not prayed up or, whole
in the right space and frequency, absolutely,
yes,
absolutely.
then it's like you will probably meet that spirit. It would be like spirit. So if you're not in that space, when you connect with them, it would be you're connecting to that energy that you're not trying to connect with. You're trying to be above it to be able to heal it. Right.
Healing. So one of the things that I do whenever someone steps into Healer's Haven, they are immediately smudged. So I do smudging.
I love it.
I smudge myself. Look, I smudge my family. Everybody gets smudged. And I use a bundle of sage, and everyone's familiar with that because a lot of, whether, in Christian homes and churches, we do,
Yes.
sage blessings and everything. It's the same thing. I smudge them with a bundle of sage in order, because, you're coming, you're running around, just like today, you're commuting and the traffic and this and that. That's energy right there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So when you come into Healer's Haven, you're coming into peace and tranquility. So wherever you are up here, I'm here, we're going to bring you on down. And I pray over them and I say affirmations. That's before we even go in, the shoes are off, before we sit down and we do any type of work, they're smudged first. That's every single client that walked through the door.
Awesome.
So it's
awesome.
The treatment and the healing. It's not just treatment, but it's healing. The process starts from the time you step in the door. And like I said, the work that I put in, from doing yoga, from praying, from meditating, reading my scriptures, doing affirmations, just a number of different things that go in just for me to prepare to work with my clients. And that's both my individual clients, but even when I'm going to do, work with businesses as well, doing workshops.
Wow.
Because again, I'm always coming in, like you said, to give that positive energy, that positive flow.
Right. That's right.
Even when I'm doing my
Bring it with
lives
you.
and my communication that I do on social media, same thing.
So this is very, very interesting, because you know what? A lot of times believers think of healing one way, just prayer. But with the Holy Spirit enters in, and in that it's a spirit. So it's spirit to spirit. So you being a believer, you're just coming in from another angle. Because, and the reason why I say it like that is because there's one body, and the body has many parts, and we all play a part. The toes can't ask the fingers to do only what the toe can do, and vice versa. The eyes can't tell the mouth what to do. Mouth can't tell the ear what to do. We all have different callings that leads up to edifying the body, which is the body of Christ. And I love what you do, because you pinpoint. I mean, it's so much more. It's much deeper than what she's sharing. Okay, trust me when I tell you. And just that you heard the number 7, exactly. The number 7 we know is complete, and then the 12, and just numbers are so important. Exactly,
number, yes.
Numbers are important.
Absolutely.
Also, we as a body, it's whole. It's not just the mind. It's everything. It's everything, and that's what you meet. You meet everything, and to me, that's so amazing, because that's what the world needs. It doesn't need another person that's working and doing things just to get a check or casting the person off. God said, go out into all the world.
All the world.
And make them disciples. When every time you reach someone, one person that you reach, you just reached 1 million from that one person. And then they will meet and change more people's lives. Everybody changes somebody.
Right.
We're all connected. So to be able to go out on your own and say, you know what, listen, I need to see change. Not to say that it wasn't happening there,
right.
But it's just that you're out of the box. You know that you're operating from your God-given talent. And you know that God is there, and it is He that's doing the work through you to be able to touch these people, and who would think from music, and the reason why I said music, because it's like, it makes a sound and it vibrates. And that's what music does. Music vibrates. You know, so stone.
And it makes you feel a certain way.
Yes,
and
that's what I'm saying.
That's the key. And we have to understand.
That's amazing.
Another key part of Raseki Reiki and then the holistic work that I do in general, is that it comes from a depth of everything that God has created.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? He created all of the elements.
Yes.
Right? Fire, air,
yes,
earth, water,
mm-hmm.
and I utilize all of those elements in my healing practice.
Amen.
And that's key. That's how we heal.
Yeah.
Especially for people of color.
Yeah.
Because again, ancestral. This is all ancestral, and we had a certain way, and we still do, culturally,
mm-hmm.
on how to heal.
Yes.
And we should pull from those because it resonates with our spirit man and woman, but also it's just healthy.
Yeah.
And it also, remember I was talking about the systemic things that are going on, it pulls us out of that.
Right.
And it makes us accountable and responsible for our own communities, for our own health, for our own families.
Right.
And another thing you said, because I know we got to wrap things up, but with my book, If I Should Die Before I Wake, when your journey to awakening your calling, this is where this came from. This was something that had to be birthed because it was time for me to walk in my divine purpose and for me to help others do the same.
Wow.
Because like you said, we're not all called to a person or to a church or to a temple or to a job or whatever the case may be. Some of us have a global calling.
Yeah.
Some of us are called to do something at a much higher level and
Absolutely.
touch, hundreds of thousands of millions.
Yeah.
And you may not even know what your calling is and what you haven't really figured it out yet, but you're on the path. Mm-hmm. And you'll know because you're going to feel it within your spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So this has been great. How could we find you?
Okay. So I am on social media. I'm on, you can find me on Instagram at I am Phoenixx Love. And also I am on Facebook, Phoenixx Love as well. And that's Phoenixx with 2 X's. PHOENIXXLOVE. Mm-hmm. And also you can go to my website where you can learn about all of my services for both individuals as well as for businesses. That's nice. That's healershaven.com.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So guys, you know what? I know that you have been touched by her ministry. I know that you have received something that you didn't have when you first tuned in. As usual, you know how we do here. You are a unique individual who has purpose, and there is a need that only you can fulfill. Today, allow your dreams to be bigger than your fears, your actions louder than your words, and your faith stronger than your feelings. Why settle for no when yes is available? Bye-bye.